Hi, Reddit. I'm writing this from a throwaway account. I won't share my name. I won't say where I live. And I won't answer questions that could identify me. I'm not here to accuse specific people. I'm not here to prove anything. I just need to say this out loud, because every time new documents come out, every time people argue online about the island, about who knew what, about who flew where, about which names matter more than others, my body reacts before my mind does. My hands start shaking. My stomach drops. My chest feels tight, like I can't breathe fully. And I remember things I was told not to remember. I was there, not as a guest, not as someone important, not as someone who mattered. I was there as something replaceable. And before you stop reading, I'm not saying I know the whole truth. I don't know all the names. I don't know all the connections. What I know is how it feels to be taken somewhere beautiful and slowly understand that your safety was never part of the plan. This isn't a story about one man, or one island, or one moment. It's about what happens when power is quiet, polite, and organized, and how easy it is to disappear inside that system. I was 19, barely stable, broke, living week to week. I worked random jobs, events, promotions, anything that paid fast. Someone I knew through mutual contacts told me about an opportunity. She was older, confident. She spoke like someone who knew important people. She said it wasn't anything explicit, nothing illegal, nothing to worry about, just travel, events, being present. She said powerful people would be there. That discretion was important, that I'd be taken care of. I remember her exact words. Just be polite, be flexible, and don't ask unnecessary questions. At the time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like advice. When you're young and struggling, you learn quickly that questions cost money. The flight wasn't commercial, small plane, quiet, no announcements. They took our phones before boarding. Not aggressively, with smiles. For security reasons, they said. I remember hesitating for half a second, then handing it over. That moment plays in my head sometimes. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was the last moment I felt like I had a choice. The island was stunning. White buildings, green hills. Water so blue it didn't look real. But it didn't feel like a vacation. It felt staged, too quiet, too controlled. There were rules from the moment we arrived, where we could walk, where we couldn't. Which paths were private. No one raised their voice. No one threatened us. Everything was explained calmly, politely. That made it harder to resist. There was one structure everyone noticed, on higher ground, white, round. Some people called it a lounge. Others called it a private space. Sometimes they just said, "That area isn't for you," no explanation. We were told how to behave, how to dress, how to stand, how to smile. It felt less like a party and more like training, like we were being prepared to play a role we didn't fully understand yet. People came and went constantly. Some stayed for hours, some overnight, some longer. They were never introduced to us, and we were never introduced to them. That distance felt intentional. It made everything colder. Safer for them, worse for us. They talked around us, over us, like we were furniture. Sometimes I'd catch the eyes of another girl. We never spoke about it. We all understood the same thing. Don't draw attention, don't react too much, don't be difficult. The scariest part was the absence of violence. No shouting, no chains, no guards with guns, just expectations, and the understanding that things could become worse if we didn't comply. That kind of control is hard to explain to people who haven't felt it. It's not fear of pain, it's fear of escalation. The doors weren't locked, but you couldn't leave. Because you didn't know where you were, because you didn't know who controlled transportation, because you didn't know what would happen next. If someone cried, she was taken away to rest. If someone resisted, she was no longer invited. That phrase was used a lot. No longer invited. It sounded harmless,
But it carried weight because no one ever explained what happened to the people who were no longer invited. We were controlled through uncertainty, through politeness, through the idea that silence was safer than resistance. And most of us believed it, because we were isolated, because we were young, because no one told us how to leave. There are parts I don't remember, not because I don't want to, but because they're missing. I remember bright lights, music somewhere far away, a voice saying, "Just relax." I remember a room that felt wrong. Not like a bedroom, not like a party space. It felt ceremonial, symbols on the ceiling, patterns that didn't belong in a vacation home. I remember thinking this wasn't about pleasure. It was about presence, about who was there, about who could be compromised. Like we weren't participants, we were leverage. That realization didn't come immediately, it came later, in fragments, in nightmares. One morning, everything changed, no explanation. They told me to pack, escorted me to the plane, gave me back my phone, no threats, no warnings, just silence. That silence followed me for years. When I tried to talk about it, people reacted the same way. They minimized it, they reframed it. They told me I was confused or exaggerating. Eventually, I stopped talking. Silence became easier than trying to be believed. Years passed. I built a life, at least on the outside. But certain things triggered me. Certain architecture, certain smells, certain tones of voice. Then documents started coming out, photos, descriptions, layouts. And suddenly, memories I'd buried had context. I recognized places, angles, rooms. I realized I hadn't imagined it. I still won't name names because I don't need to. The truth isn't in the names. It's in the system. And systems don't disappear just because one person does. I'm not writing this for justice. I know how this ends. With partial truths, with redactions, with missing files. I'm writing this because silence only protects one side. If you're waiting for the full truth to come out, ask yourself, who decides how much truth the public can handle? Because some stories were never meant to be complete. And some of us were never meant to speak. If you made it this far, I need you to understand something. I didn't post this because I suddenly got brave. I posted it because I got scared again. For years, I could pretend it was over. I could tell myself it was just a bad chapter, a horrible mistake, a nightmare I survived. But lately, everything online has been pulling it back up. New documents, new photos, new people acting shocked. And then the comments, people arguing about names, people joking, people turning it into a meme. I thought I was numb to it. Then, 3 nights ago, I woke up sweating, heart racing, not from a dream, from a sound, a notification sound from my phone. I hadn't heard that specific sound in years. It was the same sound my phone made back then when it got put into airplane mode, and I know how insane that sounds. But I swear to you, Reddit, I was awake. Fully awake. My phone was on my nightstand, screen up, no one else in the room. And it flashed for half a second, just one word. Remember. Then the screen went dark. No message, no number, nothing in my notifications. Just that word burned into my brain like someone pressed it into my forehead. That's why I'm writing again. Because it's not just memories anymore. It's like something is checking if I'm still quiet. I keep remembering small details, the kind that don't sound dramatic but hit you later, like how they avoided certain words. No one said girls. They said guests. No one said young. They said fresh. No one said victim. They said complicated situation. I remember overhearing 2 staff members talking quietly. One of them said, "Don't let them wear anything with pockets." The other laughed like it was normal. I remember how the bathrooms had no trash cans. I remember how mirrors were placed in weird angles. I remember how the air conditioning stayed cold even when it was hot outside. It felt like a hospital pretending to be a resort. And there was always that one structure up on the hill, the round building. People love talking about it online like it's a spooky mystery, but to me, it wasn't a mystery, it was a warning, because everyone treated it like it mattered. Not in a religious way, not in a ritual way, in a hierarchy way, like something important happened there that you weren't supposed to understand, like the building was a crown, and we were dirt beneath it. One night, I saw lights moving up there. Not party lights, not colored lights. Clean white light like a clinic. I remember thinking, this place is not about pleasure. It's about control. Pleasure is messy, control is organized. I keep remembering small details, the kind that don't sound dramatic but hit you later, like how they avoided certain words. No one said girls. They said guests. No one said young. They said fresh. No one said victim. They said complicated situation. I remember overhearing two staff members talking quietly. One of them said, "Don't let them wear anything with pockets." The other laughed like it was normal. I remember how the bathrooms had no trash cans. I remember how mirrors were placed in weird angles. I remember how the air conditioning stayed cold even when it was hot outside. It felt like a hospital pretending to be a resort. And there was always that one structure up on the hill, the round building. People love talking about it online like it's a spooky mystery, but to me, it wasn't a mystery. It was a warning, because everyone treated it like it mattered. Not in a religious way, not in a ritual way, in a hierarchy way, like something important happened there that you weren't supposed to understand, like the building was a crown, and we were dirt beneath it. One night, I saw lights moving up there. Not party lights, not colored lights. Clean white light like a clinic. I remember thinking, this place is not about pleasure. It's about control. Pleasure is messy, control is organized. There was another girl there. I won't use her real name. I'll call her Maya. Maya was older than me by a few years, still young, but older in the way that mattered. She had that look in her eyes like she'd already learned the rules. She barely talked. But one night, when I was shaking, she sat next to me and whispered, "Don't look scared. They like scared." That sentence snapped something into place. I asked her quietly, "How do you know?" Maya didn't answer directly. She just said, "Act bored, act like you've done this before, it's safer." That sounds impossible. How do you act bored when you're terrified? But I tried, and she was right. When I acted bored, people glanced at me less. When I acted calm, staff treated me like I was manageable. Maya told me one more thing. If they offer you something, don't argue, just take it, then pretend you forgot. I asked, "Forgot what?" Maya looked at me like I was stupid. "Everything," she said. I think about her constantly, because that was the only kindness I got there that wasn't transactional. And I don't know if she made it out okay. Sometimes I search online for clues. Not names, just patterns. But it's like the internet swallows people like Maya. Like they never existed, and that terrifies me more than any headline. Leaving wasn't freedom. Leaving was the start of the real trap. Because once you're back in your life, you're expected to act normal. People don't want the story. They want the version that makes them comfortable. So, if you're quiet, they say you're strong. If you speak, they say you're unstable. I tried to tell someone once, a friend, not details, just the outline. She stared at me and said, "Why would you go somewhere like that?" Like it was my fault. Like I volunteered for a nightmare. I never tried again. For a long time, I kept thinking someone would contact me. A lawyer, a journalist, someone who cared. No one did. Instead, 2 months after I got back, I received an email. No name, just a subject line. Confidential. Inside was a PDF, a contract, an NDA, no threats in the text, just legal language. But the message was clear. Someone knew where I lived. Someone knew how to reach me, and they wanted me to sign silence. I didn't sign it, I also didn't tell anyone, because even receiving that email proved what I already feared. They didn't need to hurt me. They just needed me to believe they could. That is how power works. You don't see the weapon, you feel it. This is the part that still makes my skin crawl. Because it happened this week, 2 days after I posted the first part. A package arrived. No return address, just my name. Correct spelling. Inside was something small. A seashell. That sounds stupid, I know, but it wasn't a normal shell. It was the exact same kind of shell that was scattered near the walkway on the island. I used to pick them up when I was anxious. I would rub the ridges with my thumb to calm down. It's a weird detail, but trauma does that. It attaches to textures. The shell was clean, not old, not dusty, like it was picked recently. Under the shell was a folded piece of paper. 1 sentence. You were told not to keep souvenirs. I dropped it. My hands went cold. I checked the box again. No hidden camera. No tracking device that I could see, just that shell. Just that message. That's when I realized someone is reading this, or someone is watching people who read this. And they're not trying to scare everyone, they're trying to scare me specifically. Because the message wasn't general, it was personal. It referenced my behavior, it referenced the rules, it referenced the fact that I used to touch those shells. No one should know that. No one. I need to be careful here. I'm not saying there's a secret society. I'm not saying every powerful person is involved. I'm not saying the internet is right about everything. But I am saying this. The island felt like a machine. Not a party, a machine. A machine that produced leverage. You bring people there. You make them feel special. You make them feel safe. You make them cross lines. Then you record. You catalog. You store. And when someone crosses a line, they're easier to control. That's why the island was beautiful. Beauty disarms people. Beauty makes them romanticize the wrong thing. It makes them say, well, it couldn't have been that bad. But the beauty was part of the system. It was bait. And the girls weren't the only targets. We were the tool. I think the real product was power over powerful people. And when you understand that, everything makes sense. The politeness, the organization, the silence. Because it wasn't chaos, it was business. I don't know what will happen after this. Maybe nothing. Maybe this post gets buried. Maybe people call it fake. Maybe that's the goal. But I'm going to say one thing for anyone who reads this and feels that familiar tightness in their chest. If you were there too, you're not crazy. If your memory comes in fragments, you're not lying. If you can't explain it without shaking, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. That means your body remembers what your mind tries to lock away. And to everyone else who treats this like entertainment, remember this. For you, it's a story. For someone else, it's their life. And sometimes the reason the truth never fully comes out is because the truth isn't a single document. It's 1,000 broken people who were trained to stay quiet. If you're waiting for the final reveal, you might not realize the reveal already happened. The reveal is that the system worked, and it's still working.